5 hosts, 4 divisions, all battling it out for the Holy Grail of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy Grail Podcast. Here are your hosts, Zach Power, Andrew Rinaldi, Corey Swartz, and Deana Weinheimer.
Well, hello and welcome to another live edition of the Holy GrAHL Podcast, Field Pass Hockey's flagship American Hockey League podcast. And today is, in case you have been not paying attention, it's May 31st today. And of course, we're here to give you a little bit of a recap of the last week in American Hockey League action. And of course, Game 5 of the Calder Cup Eastern Conference Finals between the Hershey Bears and the Rochester Americans in Hershey is taking place right now. But first, we're going to go ahead and have our introductory questions in case you're joining us for the very first time. But Andrew, I have a question, and this kind of just came to my mind as I was scrolling through our Twitter, and a really good follower and friend of my account, FPH Monsters, Arthur Kinney at Arthur on Sports, said, will there be a live on-site Calder Cup final episode with the literal Holy Grail on the desk during the show? So what I was wondering is if we ever got the chance to have the nice desk set up, the Calder Cup sitting next to us as we're calling it, what arena would you want that to be in?
Andrew Rinaldi here from the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins beats. I mean, you can't. Van Andel has had some of the energy. I know I'm about to make a lot of Wolves fans angry here that are listening in, but you guys already had yours. So I'd love to see the Griffins kind of make a rebound after the last couple of years. It kind of been down in the dumps. And Van Andel they have a ton of great fans that just bring it every night, no matter what the team is in the standings. So I think they could use another deep playoff run. I would love to see the cup in-house. A bit of superstition. I don't think I'm allowed to touch it, but you know what? Just being in the presence of such glory, I think I'd be okay with that.
And I'm Deana Weinheimer on the Cleveland Monsters beat. Of course, follow me at FPH Monsters on Twitter if you want some more info. But for me, I am trying so hard not to play the homer card, and say, hey, Cleveland. But I would love it to be in literally any of the old historic barns, or for an old historic club. So the Coca-Cola Coliseum, I believe that's still what it's called, up in Toronto, or maybe even someplace like Calgary, just to have it there in the Saddle Dome. That'd just be amazing. So, so that's it for the introductions today. Right now, we are actually in the second intermission in a super close 1-0 game. Rochester with the lead so far. And we're going to have another host pop in here real quick. Corey Swartz, welcome to the podcast. He is live at the Giants Center. Corey, what's the vibe there?
Guys, my ears are still ringing because it's very loud in here. It's a full house, it seems like, tonight. Very few seats here, but really tough defensive game here so far. The Bears have threatened, they have pushed, but they have not found the back of the net through 2 periods just yet.
Well, I was kind of wanting to get your viewpoint on the Bears in that second period. There were so many opportunities where they had like a 3-on-2 right there in front of the net. And it just seemed like they would just stop and then they would literally turn around and pass the puck to the person behind them. I saw that happen at least 3 or 4 different times. Do you think they're just kind of holding on to the stick a little bit too much, or what's going on there?
It's been a little too cute, Deana. I won't sugarcoat it with you. They've been trying to, cap off a perfect passing play, make that, sweet little highlight reel play. It's been something that's been going on all season long for the Bears at times, where they've, been guilty of trying to do, these perfect plays when they'd be better served to just shoot the puck sometimes. I mean, you saw it on one of the rushes. Hendrix LaPierre had it with Alexi Protas. he looked off him, and I think he probably would have been better served to shoot it, try to go high on the blocker side perhaps, but he instead, held on, and to his credit, put the pass onto Alexi Protas's stick. It just didn't work out, and it's been something that we've seen Todd Nelson kind of preach to him, say, hey, sometimes you just got to bear down and just shoot it, right? So it hasn't necessarily worked out in this game, but I like their physicality. I like their forecheck. And both those elements have been extremely strong for them so far in this game. And, I think if they just kind of keep at it, I think they're going to start to see results sooner rather than later.
Looks like the Bears got in a little bit of penalty trouble there. I'm kind of just tuning in at this very minute. You want these guys to be aggressive and kind of close this out, but we've already seen Yuri Kulik get one. He's been on a tear all postseason. You don't really want to give this Rochester team any opportunities there, do you?
No, you don't. You're right. With especially how good their offense has been, they've been able to capitalize on some of their power plays over the course of the playoffs. Not so much in this series against the Bears, surprisingly, though. Hershey's penalty kill has certainly risen to the occasion. And I agree with you guys, though. You don't want to give them any opportunities. And to the Bears' credit, one of the penalties wasn't automatic. It was a delay of game call. The other two, I'm sure hopefully the Rochester fans aren't complaining as much about penalties as they were in the two games on the road there, certainly. So, they've had those opportunities. The Bears have weathered the storm, I think, at times too. But, it's one of those things. I think that the Bears are on the right track. I think that they're making the right plays and they're doing the right things. It's just a matter of, getting into the spot and shooting it, honestly, and just, making sure it gets there. So I'm excited, third period, just kind of like the last, just kind of like last game. The Bears have a great opportunity there. It's a one-goal game. The damage could be worse, and it's not. So I kind of like that in that respect for them so far this one.
You think this is going to keep a tight defensive battle here, or do you think we might see some action open up in the third? He's getting there.
Could you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. You don't see a lot of 1-0 games.
I'm sorry.
Especially not before. You think it's going to stay very tight, very defensive here, or do you think we might see it open up in the third?
I think you're going to see it stay exactly the same here. It's probably going to be, a 2-1, a 3-1 type of game. It's just the DNA of these two teams. It's hard to find a strong scoring edge here sometimes. You got to take advantage of your opportunities. And, I don't see these teams bending too much in these periods or, somebody just flat out breaking. If one team maybe gets a couple of goals here and really opens things up a little bit, maybe you'll see the momentum change and, one team perhaps collapse. But it's going to take a lot, I think, at this point.
So we don't have Corey for a long time here. He's just here for the intermission. So if you have a question for him or for us real quick, go ahead. If you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, put your question in the comments. Just like Zach Martin, another night, another live GrAHL. And of course, our friend, Will Myers III saying, I'm back, friends. So go ahead and get those in if you're on Twitter, #THG Live. But Corey, I want to ask you about that offsetting penalty at 16:57 of the second. Michael Marish for Rochester getting called 2 minutes for tripping, and then Mike Vecchione 2 minutes for diving and embellishment. What was the reaction of the crowd, and what did you see there?
Well, they didn't spell it quite like they might have on other nights here. I think if maybe one, Vecchione gets the only penalty, you'd see worse, but crowd was not happy about it. I can certainly understand that Hershey hasn't had a power, up until the end of that period, did not have a power play to that point. So, I certainly understand the frustration of it in that respect. It's frustrating because, it's what's a diving embellishment in some of these cases. I didn't see anything that would have, termed in embellishment. I mean, he stuck his foot out. He got called for a trip. I don't see how you could embellish it unless you kick and scream or something on the way down, maybe. I mean, it's kind of a mystery to me, so I don't know that I quite get it. I wouldn't have scored it the same way. I don't like it. But, thankfully, somebody got tripped later on, and they did get that one. So, all's well that ends well in that respect.
I'm sure they were giving the refs a round of applause, and they were very, fair call, maybe even saying his name Drew quite a lot. So, it's we that's the postseason. There's going to be a lot of tight calls like that. I mean, if you just got to keep the feet moving and maybe force Rochester into some of those mistakes and get your own power play opportunities. Never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bears have done a great job of generating chances, right? The shot lead kind of tells the story in that second period where the Bears, really asserted themselves physically. I think that's going to, maybe play a factor as this period wears on in the third. But just the way it's been, the Bears have been throwing the body all over the place here. That fourth line has put everybody back on their heels. So, I think that one of those lines is due to crack the score sheet here in some way, shape, or form. And, you can see it. The Rochester players look gassed at the end of some of their shifts. They're feeling some of the physicality, and that's kind of how the Bears have won a couple of these games, right? They've worn down their opposition through that physical play and through that just relentless forechecking pressure. So I think that's going to probably be my key factor to the Bears getting a goal here in the third period is not only, finishing your chances with a good shot or, a good, even if it is a great play, what have you type of thing. I think that the Bears, are going to generate more just because that offensive clinic and forechecking pressure they're putting on these guys.
So how surprised were you that it was Yuri Kulik that opened up the scoring of this game, his 7th of the postseason?
Well, I think it was one that Hunter Shepard would want back, honestly, right? It was an atypical kind of goal for him to give up along the ice like that. A little bit of a low slider, not the kind of deadly shot you've seen at times in the series, really. But, Kulich is a guy, he's going to get on the board sooner or later, right? He's a highly valued prospect for the Buffalo Sabres. Him kind of breaking through, getting on the board is kind of on the, the checklist of things that you want to see if you're a Sabres fan tuning into this series. So, you knew he was going to get on the board here soon enough. The Bears have done a pretty good job corralling him. But he's one of those players, it's impossible to keep him off forever, I think. So, it's the one goal of the game. It's the difference maker so far. We're going to see just in a couple of minutes here if it ends up being the backbreaker in this game for sure.
Who do you think is going to be the hero for Hershey if they pull another rabbit out of their hat here?
Oh, you know what? It's hard to bet against Logan Day, I think. He's had some great looks. He's looked very confident in this game to me, offensively, where he's looked confident skating with the puck. He knows what he wants to do with it when he gets it, whether it be put a shot on goal or, try to make a good pass. I think Hershey's offense has been flowing. I also like Beck Malmstein. I mean, he's always a guy that's he's buzzing. He's, laid big hit on after big hit where we needed him to change the offensive momentum type of thing, after a penalty kill or whatever. He's another guy I could see easily getting this big goal here for the Bears.
So once again, end of the second, the Hershey really just buzzing during that middle frame, but of course, still trailing Rochester 1-0 in Game 5. This is a potential series clinching, Calder Cup Finals clinching berth for the Bears. Shots were 16-8 Bears in the second period, 24-17 Hershey for the game. Of course, Malcolm Subban playing out of his mind right now. But what else has Rochester been doing right to kind of keep the Bears at bay?
Well, they've been matching Hershey's intensity, right? It's been a big question if the Bears can impose their will. We talked about how it's kind of an offensive versus defense thing, but I think that Rochester's kind of risen to the occasion defensively too. I mean, when the Bears have tried to create some pretty offensive plays or, get in the zone and try to grind out a goal, they've been good at challenging them, eliminating their shot lanes. A lot of the good things that the Bears do to generate offense from a variety of different places. It's been hard for the Bears to get the puck to Malcolm Subban. They have gotten a lot of shots on goal, but, I'd be curious to see what the shot block numbers are just because they put up a clinic in that respect. So I think, you could probably score it as fairly even because of that, just because they've been able to box out the Bears and really make it hard on them. But I think if Hershey simplifies their game, that might negate some of that. Maybe just work on getting some more pucks on net, go for a greasy goal. Mason Morelli's game winner was not pretty on Monday in Game 4. So, I think if the Bears trying to go for that sort of thing instead of these, kind of layup, picturesque kind of goals, it'll serve them well in the long run. But 20 minutes is a long time in this game. So, I think it's just going to be a battle all the way to the very end.
And this is your last chance. If you have a question for Corey, get it in. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, just type it in the comments. We'll see it here on our screen. We'll get to it. If you're on Twitter, hashtag THG Live. But Corey, I just want to talk real quick. I heard on the broadcast that this is being played on NBC Sports Washington and also on the MSG network. That is huge for an AHL game, just getting a lot of presence across the northern East Coast. But to you, as a longtime Hershey fan and now a reporter, what does that mean for this market and just the overall growth of AHL hockey?
Well, you got to throw a lot of credit to the local station, Fox 43, in this area that's covering this game. They've done a lot of work, kind of picking up the baton for live coverage, television coverage of Bears games here. And they do a great job. The feed that you see that's picked up from, MSG and NBC Sports Washington is what Fox 43's production is. So, it starts locally. It starts with, before it was ABC 27 and my good friend Greg Mace that, we talked about in the show here a few times. And now they've kind of passed the baton to Fox 43 and, I think of Andrew Kalista and Todd Sadowski. They do a great job, covering games alongside Zach Fish. And, it's great to see, it shows the interest, I think, that, teams like the Buffalo Sabres have, the Washington Capitals have in their prospects. They're both done. They've been done for a little while here now, but, they've done a great job, showing that interest and, giving that value. And, these are the guys of the future, right? We're going to see guys from both of these teams in the lineup here next season for both those teams. So it's really a great chance for those fans to, not only connect with their minor league AHL franchise a little bit, but also to see guys that are going to be in the lineup next season.
All right, we do have one question. This is coming from valued and frequent watcher of the pod, Gary Weinheimer, using THG Live. Do the Bears advance tonight, or do the Amerks hold on to the lead and they force Game 6?
I think you're going to see another, hopefully, character win for the Bears here, where just like Monday, they've been sticking to their guns here. It hasn't gone in so far. Credit Rochester, they've done a lot of things right. But, for the Bears, I've seen it. It just feels like a tidal wave at times, right? It's just been, it's been a relentless pressure for them. I love what I've been seeing so far, just not seeing the results just yet. I think if Rochester is going to hold on to this, they're going to need to, do a little bit more offensively to just prevent the Bears from really being able to do things offensively. So I think it's going to be a battle all the way to the very end, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see one more red light before this night's over.
Well, Corey, the players are taking the ice, so we're going to let you go. Enjoy that third period. Hopefully the Bears will get a win on home ice for the hometown crowd. Thanks again, and I guess go Bears. Don't make me woo again.
Guys, as always. Well, we will never say never, honestly. So we'll see if I can't join here maybe a little bit later on if you guys are still going.
Sounds good. Take care, Corey.
You guys as well.
All right, and that was Corey Swartz live at the Giant Center. You could just kind of hear just that a little bit of tension, but yet kind of just a chill, confident atmosphere in the back. Just a little edge of anxiety.
You can feel the energy kind of starting to stir, and that building's roof will blow off if they end up tying that game.
I kind of wish we could just kind of keep him like in the background, just he could just sit there with the phone on his face the entire time because I want to see that.
Right, give me a live reaction for sure.
Especially for Corey, like last season, we've talked about it before. We got to watch you enjoy the Bears go on that run. I just wish, I have more time to watch Corey enjoy his Bears on the run. I'm a little jealous, I will say.
At least someone gets to enjoy it. I mean, having both my beats out on the sidelines all postseason, it's like, living vicariously through Coachella just on the basis of Podorowski. That's really about as much as I can go for the rest of these postseason. So happy for Corey. I selfishly kind of hope Rochester can push it so we can see more hockey, but I also am thinking about his blood pressure, and if the Bears win it tonight, then good for him. We'll just have to wait and see who they play in the finals.
Yeah, it's just right now, and again, in case you've been kind of away from AHL news, or you're this is Game 5, Eastern Conference Finals. 1 win away for Hershey from the franchise's 24th trip to the Calder Cup Finals. Now, Hershey took a 4-2 victory in Rochester on Monday, scoring. If you guys didn't watch this game, you got to go find a replay on AHL TV and watch this. They scored 4 times unanswered in the final 9:54 of regulation, erasing a 2-goal deficit, marking the 3rd time this postseason alone that the Bears won a game after trailing 2-0. The other 2 times were Game 4 versus Charlotte and Game 1 versus Hartford. So for Rochester, they're really in a do or die in these last 3 games if it goes that far. Big if, but 3rd period's underway. Rochester up 1-0. Do they extend this out at least one more game? Or does Hershey take the reins?
They're both of these teams. I mean, you have to be a resilient bunch to get this far, right? But I mean, you've already seen Hershey with multiple goal comebacks. You've seen Rochester on the brink, just become an absolute buzzsaw in these playoffs, and now they're pushed on the brink again. And I'm wondering to see like how this team really responds. I don't want to say that they've been quiet offensively, but they're not their usual selves. And so they're going to have to find other ways to grind out these kind of Corey alluded to it, something greasy and get these wins here. So, but I don't, doubt the character of either of these squads.
Well, our colleague Zach Martin is predicting Hershey wins and advancing tonight. However, just as that message came in, Rochester took a 2-0 lead over the Hershey Bears. And Corey just sent us a message in our group chat just simply stating, I hate it here. I felt so bad. I was thinking that's what he was going to be alluding to because that message came in a little before our feeds caught up. But Lucas Rusek with his 4th of the playoffs at 1:22 of the 3rd, and Zach is not taking the blame for this.
Someone's got to take the fall. I was the culprit the last time, so this has got to be Zach's doing, right?
This time, yes. Zach, okay, I'm sorry, but we got to place the blame on somebody. And for that goal, it's you, friend.
I'm almost wondering, because, it was the Toronto game, the deciding Toronto game, where I was like, oh, well, Rochester, Toronto's got this one. They had the early opening goal, and then it was like, bing, goal. And I was like, oh, well, there's still plenty of time, bing, goal. And I feel like every time I open my mouth, bing, goal. But now as I'm starting to, for anyone who doesn't follow me on socials, which is quite a bit of you, for good reason, but I was kind of disconnected from the Matrix for about the last 4 days, and Hershey went on a tear as soon as I disappeared, and now I'm back, and they're down. I'm starting to feel like it's me, actually. Every time I show up, there's something about the Amerks energy just goes through the roof.
Well, the thing about the Amerks energy, just as I'm watching this, they just look so composed. They're just going through their paces. They're not overly simplifying things, but they're also not trying to be, Corey kind of alluded to it, too cute or too fancy. They're just playing real solid hockey. But I don't know if the moment may be getting just a little bit too big for the Bears here, if it's just a little bit of nerves, if they need to kind of play the one game in this situation. I don't know, but the Bears just don't look like themselves. But also, we just had a helmet fly into the stands. I think that was Dylan McElrath laying a hit. Let's see. Yeah, Dylan McElrath laying a huge hit near the boards on one of the Amerks players, and that helmet goes flying into the stands. A nice souvenir for one of those at the front two rows here in Hershey.
What if Corey caught it?
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
He just comes on to the next show. He's got the helmet of an Amerks player. That would be fantastic. I hope he gets to keep it if he does.
And a little bit of a kerfuffle happening after that. So I think they're going to show a close-up here. Oh, yeah, that goes right into the second row. I can't see who was on the receiving end of that hit, but Dylan McElrath just using the body.
Anyone who's been following the Griffins over the last, he was on Grand Rapids for about, I would say, 4 years or so. McElrath loves he comes down those train tracks like a giant locomotive, man. If you're not keeping your head on a swivel, he does some damage. He's a big boy and he loves the physicality. This is his time of the year. When you're down 2-0, you're on home ice. You might as well you got to spark the boys, right? And nothing like getting the head out there. Did a thing happen? Oh, a thing happened.
And a thing happened. If you are a Hershey Bears fan, a very good thing happened as they have finally gotten on the score sheet. First goal of the night with 16:16 remaining. Waiting to see exactly who got that goal.
Game center.
It looks like Alexei Protas. Yep. Yeah, I saw the number just as you started reading that. So, yeah, just real clutch goal. He was down low, got, really focused on that redirect there, got it past Subban. Hershey's back in this game.
Yeah. The Bear from Belarus, man. Protas he's spending a lot of time going up in Washington, and they love his size up there at the next level. Obviously, the Caps aren't really involved in a lot of hockey this time of the year, so he's down in Hershey making himself known. And, when you have a body like that in front of the net, what can you do if you're an Amerks defender? Unless you have your own Dylan McElrath to kind of help try and clear him out, but not everyone's got one of those. They're very hard to come by these days. I'm not a secret Amerks fan.
Zach Martin saying you're a secret Amerks fan.
God bless America and all of that, but the team is just kind of like they took super offense to when I made a joke about how they copied Milwaukee's homework for their jerseys. So they're not very chill with me, I don't think. So no matter how many times I pump their tires on here or a good luck charm I am for them, it's still kind of they got my number, but they don't ever text me.
So we just kind of need to give props. Corey talked about Logan Day during his brief segment here on our live show today. But Logan Day with that perfectly placed shot down to Alexei Protas on the power play. Corey knows his Bears players. He called them out as real important pieces, especially Logan Day. Joe Snively getting the second assist. Here they are.
He's got 9 points already this postseason. He only had 12 assists all in 36 games played this season. No goals. He talk about turning your game up at the right time. Even from the blue line to be able to produce like that. Some guys are just gamers, and I'm putting Logan Day in that category right now because sometimes those lights shine bright, and you don't have your sunglasses on, you can't really see so well. Some other guys thrive in that kind of environment. So when you have a name like Day, I guess you really do thrive in the light.
So Logan Day, that's going to be his third consecutive game with an assist. Just Wow. I'm listening to this crowd right now with the ref you suck chat or chants. They have been on these refs all game. And now LaPierre getting thrown out of the face-out circle. These fans, I need to get to a game at the Giants Center. I mean, these fans are amazing.
Have you ever seen a situation where like the fans say "ref, good job"? We always want a dog on the stripes, but no one ever appreciates them whenever they make the right call, huh?
The only time I ever saw that was in an NHL game where it seemed like literally an entire section were fans wearing ref uniforms.
I feel like I've seen
and every time the refs did literally anything, they all stood up and cheered. It was one of the greatest moments in sports I've ever watched. I don't remember what game it was or anything like that, but it was all like, think of the traveling Yoggers, but with officiating, you know?
That's pretty amazing.
It was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. So
I heard a good chirp from the National League on Twitter. So it was right after that 4 overtime game in Carolina, and one of those stripes is talking with Brandon Montour. He's like, "Oh, you had like 57 minutes ice time." And he's like, "Oh yeah, you know." And the ref's like, "That's cool. I get 60 minutes every night."
Oh my God.
It really puts in the perspective, though. I mean,
yeah,
that's a lot of skating. You know, we never really think about that with the stripes, and so it can be a little exhausting. I'm going to give props where they're due. Nice call.
So we've got quite a few people watching us. Does anybody out there know, like, kind of a rough estimate, how far do refs skate in a given hockey game?
Ooh.
If you know, tweet us. Use the hashtag THG Live or tag us at the Holy Grail. Of course, that is GrAHL. Or if you're on YouTube or Facebook, just pop it in the chat. I'm honestly really curious, and I know I've brought this up to like a lot of different friends, my husband a million times, wondering how far do they truly skate? So if you know, let me know. And I don't even want to know some of these overtime games, how much more that gets added onto it.
Endurance, man. I again, props to him. I couldn't do it. I already know Gary's going to work for the answer, and we'll have it for you very shortly here.
Probably the official podcast dog sitter while I record and unofficial statistician. So while we are in a commercial break here, I do want to talk about some coaching news. First of all, in the AHL, the Iowa Wild have a brand new coach in Brett McLean. So that news being announced just yesterday. The 44-year-old has actually spent the last 3 seasons as an assistant with the NHL's Minnesota Wild. So no stranger to that organization. In that time, he has helped the Minnesota Wild to 3 consecutive berths in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then prior to that, he served as an assistant in Iowa from 2017 to 2020, including the team's first ever trip to the Calder Cup playoffs in 2019. No stranger to hockey, played 18 seasons professionally, including 274 games in the AHL with a team very close to my heart in the Cincinnati Mighty Ducks in 1998-99, a team close to Zach's heart with the St. John Flames, 1999 to 2000, the Houston Aeros in 2001-02, and the Norfolk Admirals from 02 to 04, and then Rockford Ice Hogs 2011-2012. Also 385 games in the NHL with Chicago, Colorado, and Florida, as well as stints overseas. So, Andrew, you cover that division. You know, what do you make of this hire?
Yeah, it seems like he's going the Marco Sturm route, like he had over in LA, where you spend a little time up in the big club as an assistant, kind of get used to the setting, get used to what they're expecting up there in the NHL, get used to the system. Then they kind of give you the reins and be like, okay, now you're going to head up the pipeline and kind of feed the players up into the big club here. I really didn't like seeing Tim Army go. I thought that team played super hard from him from beginning to end. And I know it was kind of an unceremonious end in the season. They're in the play-in, and they lose 2 overtime games to Rockford, who I kind of thought was a paper tiger all year. But again, I'm just going to get hammered by IceHogs fans for it. I liked how that team fought for Coach Army. So I think the organization has a lot of faith to replace a guy like that, who is very well respected in that locker room, with another guy who, I mean, I wish I could say I know a lot about him, but he up in Minnesota. I didn't really watch a lot of Wild hockey this year. So it's going to be just a change of pace in Iowa. And it's going to be a shifting demographic of that whole team. I mean, it depends on what Nick Patan, where he's going to be going. I don't think Jesper Wallstedt is going to be going anywhere. I think he should be pretty solidly in that crease there in Iowa, getting as many starts as he can. But I mean, where's Sammy Walker? Is he going to be in Minnesota? Marco Rossi, where is he? There's a lot of question marks there. I don't know what their prospect system is going to be looking like, but clearly the Wild favor this coach. And I mean, shuffling the deck is never bad whenever things kind of seem like they're going stale a bit there. So we'll see where they're going.
All right. And we got a question on YouTube from Races Fan Rocks 4. If your team can bring in your dream player to help the AHL, who would you want them to get?
Ooh, if you're talking
that is such a good question.
Dream player, I'm finding a way to kidnap Sergei Fedorov from Russia for a second time, and I'm having him pull the goalie in overtime just because he's a madman like that, and I love it. But Sergei was my absolute favorite to watch back in the Red Wing dynasty days. And as you might have heard, he's a little unorthodox with his coaching style over there in Russia, but it works. The man gets results and W's, and at the end of the day, that's where he's impressed. Just ask Daryl Sutter. So I would love me some Fedorov back, but I think that's they got to retire his number in Detroit before we can even cross that bridge.
So before I give my answer, I love that Racist Fan Rocks 4 actually followed up with their own answer. They would love to see the Bakersfield Condors get Riley Barber. And man, I love Riley Barber. I really do.
I was talking about gamers before. Riley Barber is a gamer. I mean, last year in Grand Rapids, he almost just willed that team into a postseason spot just because him and Berggren accounted for about 90% of the offense. I'm not making that number up. I did the math and I looked it up. So it was real tough seeing him going to a division rival down there in Texas, but man, he's as dependable as they come at this level. If you need a big goal scored, and I think that's kind of the reason why you're seeing Milwaukee here instead of Texas, is because I think the Admirals kind of keyed in on him, especially on the power play. Didn't give him a lot of room to shoot, and Texas didn't get the goal scoring that they needed, and that's why they're kind of watching the Western Conference Finals this time around.
So one thing I miss about Riley Barber being in the East is whenever his team would come to Cleveland, he had family I believe in Western Pennsylvania. And it seemed like they always made the trip up to Cleveland to watch Riley play. And every time he scored, got an assist, for any reason his name was called, other than penalties, you would always just hear this loud cheer of Riley, just like super high pitched cheering. And it always made me smile because he had his own little fan section there, and I loved it. Can I be selfish and say that I want Cleveland in some way, shape, or form to bring in Andrew Podorowski?
No, absolutely not.
I want him in Cleveland. I would go to a lot more games, even though it's a 2-hour-ish trip to get there in the wintertime, which is no fun. But I would go to a heck of a lot more games just to interview him every chance I got. Plus, he's such a good player, though. It would never happen, I don't think, but I would love it.
Great player, great human, awesome to interview every single time. It's just the thing I love about Potts is, like, if I was him, like, last 2 years, this league's basically just been your playground, I'd be walking around like Conor McGregor, just doing the strut, just every time I'm walking out of that locker room. And he's never been a peacock. It's never been about him. It's always been about the boys. It's always, it's putting, I know it's kind of a cliche, especially in this sport, but I mean, he really does really not care about his individual accomplishments. It's all about yes, justice for Potts. Hey, that guy deserves a shot.
Always.
I hope he goes to San Jose next year, and
that's why I'm saying Cleveland, because he can go with Columbus, and Lord knows with all the injuries, he would get his NHL time.
He'd get his shot, and hopefully
I'm just saying.
Stay there. Yeah, exactly. But
Potts with Gaudreau and Line
it
could
man,
happen.
don't get me started.
It could happen.
I'm just gonna go on NHL tonight and just make it happen, just because it needs to happen. But
yes, please.
If I'm talking like player in the league now, it's hard for me to like not immediately go and want to pick a goalie just for Grand Rapids' sake, because they need one.
Yeah.
And I can't say I want to bring Berggren back because he's grown up. My little Swedish meatball is all good for him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go a little bit off the beaten path here. I'm gonna go with Mitch McLean because he's got the nickname the Moose. I don't know if y'all have seen my hat. I was just up in the least visited national park in the lower 48 states. I wasn't in Alaska or anything. And there were about 1,000 moose on this island. And a guy with that kind of nickname, with that kind of thick playoff beard at this time of the year, that's a guy I want in my corner. That's how could you not root for that? A lot of Wolves fans don't, because there's a very kind of infamous scene where he flashed the moose antlers at him, and then the Wolves proceeded to beat the Admirals just about every single time after that season. and you saw them doing this too, right back at him. So don't poke the bear, or in this case, don't poke the wolf.
Well, Rochester definitely is poking a bear. Just a real disastrous turn of events here. Kind of a controversial call with Alexei Protas going off for hooking at 12:47. It looked like he was actually getting his stick held, but I digress. Then shortly after, the Rochester Americans scoring to go up 3-1. Now, are the Bears poked sufficiently to where they're going to come back, or is this kind of spelling the end for a potential Hershey win tonight?
Well, after game 4, I guess you can't really count them out just yet, but that's a tough turn of events there. And I get that, might have been, it could have either easily have gone to the Rochester player. I didn't catch the number there, but at the same time, you can't put yourself in a position to even give them the benefit of the doubt to call you for that. You got to just keep the feet moving and put yourself in a better position to battle for that puck. And I told them, that's 0 for 3 in those first couple power plays, but eventually this Rochester team was going to cash in, and there you go.
So we didn't get an answer on the refs and how far they skate each game, but I did get an answer on the section of on referees. It was at a New York Islanders game on February 9th, 2019, where a whole section of Islanders fans wore stripes to honor the referee on Superhero Day at the Barclays Center.
It was Superhero Day?
It was
That's some
Superhero
incredible
Day.
recognition.
And yeah, it was Avalanche at the Islanders, a whole section of referees. There's a video up on NHL.com. And yeah, so thanks once again to our unofficial statistician / researcher / know everything about refs for the most part, my lovely husband at GPW CPJ. And if you have a question like Racist Fan Rocks 4, or if you have commentary like Zach Martin or Will Myers III had, feel free to tweet us. Use the hashtag THGLive or just tag us at the Holy Grail, GrAHL. If you are on Facebook or Twitter, just pop a message in the comments and we will show you, your comments right on the show, just like that. So, yeah, I was hoping Snively would get in there with a goal, but with 4:48 remaining, Rochester is up 3-1. I'm going to just go back to the whole coaching discussion here real quick, and I wish I had time to talk to Corey about this, but Spencer Carberry finally making the jump to the NHL, returning to the Washington Capitals organization, this time as a head coach. Spent the last 2 seasons as an assistant with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but he was the head coach for the Bears from 2018 to 2021 and was voted the winner of the Louis A.R. Pierre Memorial Award as the American Hockey League's outstanding coach in 2020 to 2021. During that time in Hershey, he oversaw the development of NHL players like Vitek Vanacek, Ilya Samsonov, Phoenix Copley, Jonas Siegenthaler, Liam O'Brien, Brett Leeson, Axel Janssen-Fjallby, Travis Boyd, and I just gave it away. And Corey's favorite, Nathan Walker. Carberry is actually joining the likes of Gary Green, Brian Murray, and Bruce Boudreau as the 4th Hershey head coach to advance to become the head coach of the Washington Capitals. So what a move. What a smart move. I was worried that, they kind of let a good thing go when he jumped over to Toronto, but they got him back.
Yeah, and you got to figure with all that, everything that's been going around in Maple Leaf land that, in questions of the GM and the coach, that if he was going to get his shot, his promotion, but I feel like they must be pretty okay with Keefe, and he went elsewhere and back up in the saddle with a lot of the old boys that he was coaching up in Hershey. And although you were naming off a lot of those names, and lots of them are not in Washington anymore, I was sitting there, I'm like, he gone. And I was like, uh-oh. But I think it's important to point out that, we obviously, for all the right reasons, we're very focused on the players developing. All these coaches that are coming through, they have to pay their dues down here in the American League as well. And it's not just learning how to win. It's learning these systems. It's learning these players and how they all gel with one another. And I think Carberry had his time in Hershey. Obviously, he's got the accolades to back up all of his accomplishments there. Up in Toronto, I think he was in charge of the power play, and that was clicking. You can chalk it up to, okay, well, they got all that talent up there. It's not as easy as just throwing a bunch of good players on one line and then just letting them do their thing. You have to set up so much for these guys. And then they got to execute. So he's certainly paid his dues. And I think Washington loves the fact that they have a guy who knows not just the system, but he knows the boys. And it's still going to be a little lean, I think, in Washington coming up here, just considering that, I mean, I know Ovi got Gray early, but he's just getting more and more Gray up in there, and a lot of the other guys in that team are following suit. So,
yep.
But he's probably going to be behind the bench when Ovi breaks the record, so that'll be nice.
So going back to this game at the Giants Center in Hershey, 3 minutes exactly remaining. Rochester leading 3-1. Hunter Shepard on the bench, and I am just hearing a chorus of shoot raining down from the rafters.
That is the worst. The fans think they know better than the players. Like, oh, well, maybe if I shoot, I might score. Like, oh, what a thought. It's very pronounced in Toronto. I remember the one game, I felt so bad for Thomas Caberlet at the top of the key on the power play every time the puck came near him. He did before he even had the puck. They're already telling him to shoot. So, if anyone is out there listening, trust me, these guys know when, where, and how to shoot. Just sometimes you got to be a little patient. You got to let that play develop. You got to let that screen get up. They got Alexi Protas. He's a monster. He's got to get to the net. You got to let things happen. Zen like patience. It'll pay off. I promise you. Just stop telling your players to shoot.
I thought Garrett Pilon was going to do something very amazing there, but some really strong play along the blue line there to keep the puck in play. Garrett Pilon coming up almost clutch, but real strong there. I don't know. I think this game might be iced here, but we got another question here from Races fan Rocks 4. Who is worse, the people who shout shoot or the people that bang on the glass?
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay, so last year's playoff run, I was very endeared to Stormy, the mascot from Hurricanes, who went absolutely mental banging on the glass. Like it was such a great video. I wish I had it bookmarked, but it just I've never seen such energy and such that's like one of the few times I'll excuse it. I've been guilty of that before. It was the one time I ever had glass seats at Joe Louis Arena, and I made eye contact with Alex Killorn, and I had to do it. Those are the ones that are going to stick with me. He's not going to remember it. I probably made a bunch of people watching on TV mad, but you know what? I'll take it. I'll own up to it. I never really get glass seats ever, so yeah, he's right in my face. I'm going to go at it. So probably the people that yell shoot. I can excuse banging on the glass as like emotion. People yelling shoot is just impatience. It's like it's like bad drivers on the highway. I can't do it. I start getting triggered.
So I'm actually going to go the opposite of you, because I have been that person that you just want your team to win so badly, and you are just this huge bundle of anxious nerves, and you can't think of anything else, and you just I'm thinking of some very specific things in my head where the player is just like dangling the puck and they're just like coasting with it, and you see the lane, and this player just is not shooting the puck. If you're a Jackets fan and we're here the last a few seasons ago, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Not going to say names. Lindbergh. Anyway, and that's 4-1. That's going to ice it, I think. I know it's going to ice it. And you just can't help but yell, shoot, because what else are you going to do? Just scream incoherent nothings. But it's just passion. But yeah, and with what I hate about the people banging on the glass, I think a lot of people know the guy that has the sign that says bang down in Dallas, because he got in trouble for banging on the glass because it interrupts the microphones. It makes if you're banging on the glass, you get that sound on the mic, and you get some of those cameras start wobbling. I think those cause more of a disruption, so therefore those are the worst.
I think you're just calling me out there on that one. After I admit to banging on the glass the one time I'm there, now you're just like, oh, well, he's destroying infrastructure. You know what? The Red Wings can afford another camera. I don't really care. I do.
Well,
I didn't say that on the air.
You were kind of calling me out without knowing that I have yelled shoot. I've gotten a lot better with it, especially since that Andrew Ferentz little promo where he's like, you know what? The other team, they can hear you too. I've gotten a lot better with it. I have done it one or two times since. But can we just shout out Zach Fucale, who I don't think has sat down at all during this game? On the bench.
He's been standing on the bench the whole time.
He's just standing there. Every time I look at him, he's standing. I don't think Zach Fucale has sat down at all.
Some guys, they're just like I said, they're gamers, and maybe he's just full of that same anxious energy. And I think those, whether you shout, shoot, or you bang on the glass, I think those are both kind of crimes of passion. So I think we can let them slide, just as long as you don't overstep the boundaries. Like I think I banged on the glass once at Alex Killorn, and that was it. I wasn't an all gamer. It was just I had a little bit of liquid inspiration in me, so I sent it, and that was it. So
and Dylan McElrath headed down the tunnel. He was kind of
he's not one who finishes blowout games. He's just not.
No. I've been around long enough. Yeah, but it's going to be a 2-goal night for Lucas Rusak with that empty netter goal with just 25 seconds remaining. Rochester up 4-1. Hershey leading in shots 33-27. Just a rough night for the Bears. I mean, I brought it up with Corey, but there were just too many times where, you look like they had a possible lane. Of course, they can see better than us. Andrew was just talking about it. But they would just literally turn around and pass the puck to the guy behind them, or they were just questioning themselves a little too much. And that's the end of the game. Once again, 4-1, Rochester over Hershey, extending the series to a game 6.
Oh boy, that house in Rochester is going to be rocking for game 6. That's going to be a good one.
And that is going to be on Friday at Zach's favorite time. I got to get the banner. 7:05. We are not doing
what does
this.
5 minutes do? What does it really do?
Right.
5 more minutes at the concession stand, I guess. But other than that.
So at a 7:05 game, do they delay the doors opening for 5 minutes, or do they literally get that extra 5 minutes?
Maybe they open them 5 minutes early and you get an extra 10 minutes.
Ooh, okay. That I could live with.
Total chaotic energy. Why do anything that makes sense at this point?
So we were talking about Dylan McElrath. Actually, he and Brendan Warren for the Rochester Americans, both at 1934, getting a 10-minute unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So, yeah, just an overall rough night for the Hershey Bears. We're going to give Corey a moment here to see if he's going to pop in to share his final thoughts. But yeah, I'm ready to see what happens in Rochester. I never count these Amherst out. Whenever they need to show up, they show up. But the Bears also don't go down quietly easily. This is not the Eastern Conference Finals I would have predicted, but it's the one that we all deserve.
Exactly. And right, these are just, like I said, you have to be resilient in order to get this far into the year, and neither one of these teams are going to give up easily. This is going to be game 6 is going to be a grind. I have a feeling game 6 it's going to it's going to be very similar to this. It's not going to be super high scoring. It's going to be very tight checking. Might see Brendan Warren get thrown into a bench again and start fights with the other players. That was a great scene, by the way.
We didn't even talk about that.
I know. Well, that got started before we even came on, but
yeah.
So I kind of figured like that led into the misconducts, and the refs were like, "All right, everyone's done here. This game's over." But yeah, it's talk about resilience, and I almost feel like the Amerks were like, "Okay, we got them right where they want them," because this team plays best when they're loose. They're playing with house money. I feel like they got that first one, and then just they weren't really comfortable in their game. Not that I could say a whole lot about it because there are no cell towers up in the middle of nowhere, but once again they were kind of on the edge. They're like, okay, let's go out and play. And I feel like that was very prevalent in tonight's game, was that they were loose. They weren't kind of holding, you hold on your stick a little too tight, you send a shot high and wide when you should just be putting it on net. And a couple uncharacteristic not saves from Hunter Shepard. And I always talk about paper thin margins. And this time of the year, a couple mistakes are going to end up biting you.
So the attendance tonight was 10,520. Great showing by the faithful in Hershey. And a little bit of news that I did not catch earlier, but this impacts the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Seattle Kraken extending Ron Francis through the 2026-27 season. So he's been doing a great job bringing in players. I know there was a lot of criticism about the initial expansion draft, but obviously it's working for them. They have one team in the AHL conference finals out there in the West, and they had the Kraken. I mean, they didn't do a half bad job themselves in the NHL playoffs this year. So that news also coming through today. So Andrew, final thoughts here before we call it a night?
This is hard to predict. You can't count either of these teams out. You know what? I'm just gonna say I think we're going 7 on this one. This Amerks team, they're dangerous. You can't let them. Hershey can't let them in. This could be real. Don't let it slip away. It's just one game. You got 2 chances, but you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile.
Well, that's now 4-0 for Rochester in elimination games this postseason. The more I'm seeing this, the more definitely it's feeling like a 7-game series. I was thinking it was going to be Hershey in 5, maybe 6, but now it's truly anybody's game in 7. Truly. And who knows, maybe the Bears will get that win that they deserve on home ice. But that's going to be it for the Holy Grail podcast for this episode. If you would like to see or hear more of us, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Put on that bell so you'll find out whenever we go live or we have a new weekly episode, or just subscribe anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at the Holy Grail. One more time, GrAHL. You can also check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts. You can join Matthew Harding and Jason Mouse as they break down the ECHL's Wichita Thunder and chat with some of the team's legendary players. The Rolling Thunder podcast is airing bi-weekly on Field Pass Hockey. Also, for you ECHL fans out there is a new revamped ECHL podcast coming from Field Pass Hockey with Matthew Harding, and our friend of the pod, Zachary Martin, is going to be joining in on that. He is back with us covering, I believe, the Greenville Swamp Rabbits out there in South Carolina. So the Coast Cast coming sometime. It's very much in development right now, but just keep an eye out for next season. And then finally, Syracuse Speaks with Alexandra Ackerman, where she has a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast focusing on maintaining a balanced perspective in the ever-shifting world of minor league hockey. So on behalf of Corey at the Giant Center, Andrew, and myself, we hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you next Thursday. Thanks again.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.